Okay, so the Xfinity Series playoffs are finally underway. I say finally because by the time the Xfinity playoffs have begun, the Truck Series and the Cup Series have already gone for like the first round. It's really weird. Xfinity, the consistency in these championships is really weird, and it's gonna get even weirder because the Truck Series they have a month break in the next round. Like between Talladega and Martinsville, there's gonna be like a 1 month break or almost a 1 month break, I believe. Yeah, it's pretty weird. The pacing of this season, the trucks and Xfinity playoffs is pretty weird compared to the Cup Series. But side tangent aside, Xfinity playoffs, these are, in my opinion, the easiest playoffs for me to predict. In the sense of they are very top heavy. Like it is pretty clear who the championship favorites are at this point, and even some of the dark horses apparently as well. So of course this is really funny because Xfinity is like the best of the three series, or like the most entertaining. It produces the best racing, but it doesn't have as many. It doesn't have as many like um, talented or high caliber drivers. It's all top heavy. Most of the most of these are the series where there are the most underdog drivers. As you can see here, Jeremy Clements actually made the playoffs. Um, and of course, the Michael Annett injury, of course, definitely affected the playoffs, and we'll get into that immediately. So starting off the round of 12, again, this is just pretty easy. Riley Hurst, Brandon Jones, Mike Schneider, and Jeremy Clements. Like, this is just pretty straightforward for me. Of these four guys now, Jeremy Clements, funnily enough, I believe he has the best chance to actually make it to the round of 8. Simply because of his consistency, even though he has actually been a bit off. In the end, I think he can point his way in, but he's gonna need one of the 8 other guys in here to fall apart in the round of 12. If that doesn't happen, then I don't think Clemens is gonna point his way in because he is the 12th seed in the grid. He has no playoff points after being in the top 10 for like the entire season. In the end, that chaotic Bristol race, in the end, it ended up Herbst ended up knocking him out of the top 10 and getting that one playoff point for finishing 10th in points. So yeah, Myatt Snyder, he won Homestead. For a moment it looked like he could actually make it to the round of 8, but after that, he never scored a single top 5 after Homestead. He has been, in some ways, his average finish, I believe, is worse than Herbst's. Now, speaking of average finish, Brandon Jones definitely has the worst average finish. He is very hit or miss. You don't know which version of Brandon Jones you're going to get. That and the fact that he doesn't have as many playoff points as he did last year because he hasn't won any races. Not gonna lie, Brandon Jones has been slightly disappointing this season. I don't expect him. That inconsistency is very hard to predict, and with Talladega and the Charlotte Roval being tracks where you don't know what to expect, Brandon Jones could either heroically make it to round of 8 or just flame out and no one will give a damn. And finally, Herbst. I have seen like the biggest misconception about Riley Herbst is that he made the playoffs because Michael Annett was injured. And for the most part, that statement held true because after Annett got injured, all he had to do was beat Brandon Brown. But if you look at his performance and his results, especially in the second half of the season, you'll see that in the last 12 races, he actually had only 2 DNFs and 8 top 10s, including 2 top 5s at Richmond and Bristol. So he has some momentum heading into the playoffs. Now, of course, a lot of people are saying, "Whoa, Herbst wouldn't be in the playoffs if Michael Annett didn't get injured." And this is what I gotta say. It's true, and Herbst's season is still disappointing. I'm not saying that Herbst is not disappointing. His season is disappointing because I expected him to win a race and to make it to the playoffs, like not be in the playoff bubble, like clinch his spot in the playoffs like 1 or 2 weeks in advance, not be in the bubble all season long. But as a matter of fact, if you take a look at how the point standings ended up, if Michael Annett didn't get injured, Herbst would have still made the playoffs by 2 points over Jeremy Clements. Now, of course, I am not celebrating that. That's nothing to celebrate. That just shows how underperforming Herbst was. But I just do not believe that blanket statement or that narrative that Herbst was helped by Michael Annett. Of course, the injury helped him. It gave him less margin for error. But after Annett got injured, Herbst actually started performing really well. Now, of course, I still don't think he's gonna make it to round of 12, past the round of 12, because that stretch of good results, like top 10s, top 15s, the occasional top 5. That's the best you're gonna get out of Riley Herbst in a good car, in top equipment. That's like the ceiling for Riley Herbst. That said, I expect him to get involved in some kind of wreck that it wasn't his fault, but also Riley Herbst has had a tendency to get a lot to get caught up in other people's mess, which is something that Michael Annett doesn't struggle with as much, especially in his JR Motorsports days. But yeah, round of 12 is pretty straightforward. Now, as for the round of 8, things get actually a bit more tricky, because I can actually see one of the guys that I have eliminated here actually making it to the championship 4. One guy that I don't have is Jeb Burton. If there is a guy that I could see actually like falling apart and being eliminated in the round of 12, it's Jeb Burton. Because outside of that hot start of the season with 3 straight top 5s and that win at Talladega in the spring, outside of that, Jeb Burton has actually been even worse than Ross Chastain. Of course, I think he's going to make it to round of 8 because there's no competition for him to... The round of 12 is pretty weak. And because the playoff field is really weak, I expect him to make it to round of 8. But if there is a guy that I think will fall apart, it's gotta be Jeb Burton. Daniel Hamrick, the winless wonder, as I like to call him. Consistency, as always, is the name of his game. But in the playoffs, where winning matters more than anything, and with how Hamrick can't seem to get over this mental block of winning somehow. I'm sorry, I just don't see a way where Hamrick, excuse me. I do not see a world where Hamrick actually wins a race. I have to believe it when I see it at this point. Every time he seems to have a chance to win, it's like something happens to him, whether he just gets into his own head and falls apart, or his team's cruising over, or some outside circumstance happens that just throws away any chance at a win. Like, I'm just expecting Daniel Hamrick to... If Daniel Hamrick is leading, I'm just expecting him to not win a race. If he is like the best car in the race, it's a good day to finish second. That's just the sad reality of Daniel Hamrick. Now, could he make it to the championship 4 on points? Of course he can, but I just don't see it happening. I mean, he's made it before back when he was in RCR. But he hasn't been as good in the 18 as he was in his 2018 season with RCR. I'll say he's a bit worse than when he was back there. Harrison Burton is kind of in the same boat. Unlike Hamrick, I can actually see Harrison Burton win races. because I have seen him win races in the playoffs, although last season he won when he was already eliminated. But again, this is why most people had Harrison Burton like a top 2 or top 3 driver because of the way he ended the 2020 season. And of course, he had some positive momentum building for 2021 that hasn't really amounted to anything. Harrison Burton right now is just like a slightly more consistent Daniel Hamrick. Without the wins, of course. He has had a very similar season in 2020 to his rookie season, except that without the wins, and because of that, he has also been a bit disappointing because I expected him to win like 3 to 4 races and make it to the Championship 4, be a shoe-win for the Championship 4. Basically, what Allmendinger is right now, I expected Harrison Burton to kind of be the guy that could challenge Cindric for the regular season championship. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, or that hasn't happened yet. But I can actually see him, unlike Daniel Hamrick, I can actually see him winning a race. Again, with Hamrick, I'll have to believe it when I see it. With Harrison Burton, I have seen him with my own eyes. He stole a win from Gragson at Texas, a win that could have potentially locked Gragson into the Championship 4. He stole that win. So Harrison Burton has a knack to steal wins in the clutch. He's done it before. He stole 2 from Gragson. As a matter of fact, Homestead, that race comes to mind as well. But yeah, while I think that Harrison Burton has a chance, I don't think he has the best chance. And so we're down to 5 guys, and I have to eliminate one of these guys. Immediately, as always, we already know which of these 2 guys are going to be in the Championship 4, and there's also a 3rd guy. So it comes down to Noah Gragson and Justin Haley, to me, for who will be the Championship 4. Now, Gragson, especially last year, he came pretty close to actually making it to the Championship 4. Of course, that win at Texas until Harrison Burton stole that win. Also, if that DNF at Kansas didn't happen, if it didn't crash at Kansas, there is also a chance he could have made it to the Championship 4, because a lot of people tend to ignore this about Gragson, but in the 2020 playoffs, in last season's playoff, Gragson finished in the top 3 in every single playoff race outside of Kansas, where he DNF'd. And that one single DNF, coupled with the fact that Harrison Burton he stole the win from him at Texas, that's why Gragson didn't make it to the Championship 4. Now, of course, Gragson, after a slow start to the season, he picked it up with back-to-back wins at Darlington and Richmond. So, of course, he has some positive momentum coming into this season, into these playoffs. However, we have seen Gragson not really over aggressively, but there's just something about Gragson that I just feel that he won't be able to make it to the Championship 4. And I'll explain why. I don't have Gragson making it to the Championship 4, and it's because of, I believe, Justin Haley. I believe he is more of a capable guy to make it to the Championship 4, because he has done it in 2018 in the Truck Series, and also he made it last season. So Haley, I believe he has more experience in making it in the Championship 4. Not to mention, he has embraced this dark horse like thing. He did it last season with his win at Talladega last season, where he said that he was like the dark horse of the playoffs, and he played the dark horse role really well. For parts of the Phoenix race last season, I almost thought that he was going to win that race. Of course, in the end, he didn't, but the fact that he was in contention and he was like a factor at times shows me that Haley is a more prime candidate to make it to the Championship 4 than Gragson is. Now, of course, it's a very tough choice between these two. If you have Gragson in the Championship 4 instead of Justin Haley, of course, I would understand, because it's a pretty close call between these two guys. So that leaves us with the Championship 4 of Austin Cindric, AJ Allmendinger, and the two Justins, Allgaier and Haley. Now, of course, to me, this is pretty straightforward. Cindric and Allmendinger are like the two favorites, and Allgaier is like the distant third guy. And as I said, Justin Haley is the dark horse. Although you could very easily, although I could see very easily Gragson replacing Haley in the Championship 4, but the other three guys, unless something catastrophic happens to any of the three of them, I believe these three are pretty much shoo-ins for the Championship 4. As for who will be the champion, although Allmendinger has had like a bit of a hot streak to end the regular season, as he stole the regular season championship from Cindric with that wild finish at Bristol, I still gotta give the title to Cindric. And here's why. The finale is gonna be held at Phoenix, and Cindric has won the last two Xfinity races at Phoenix. He won the championship race that clinched in the Cup, of course, the title, and he also won the spring race in March. Now, while I can see Allmendinger making a bit of a push there, because I believe Allmendinger will be even better, because that's the thing, Allmendinger has been even better as the season goes on, so I wouldn't count Allmendinger out, but I'm calling it in as of right now, as of the making of this video, before the playoffs even begin at Las Vegas. I got Cindric as my champion. Now, of course, so those are my predictions. They are pretty straightforward outside of the whole like Noah Gragson, Justin Haley debacle. I could wake up the next morning and say like, oh, Gragson in the Championship 4 over Justin Haley. But for the most part, I think I'm pretty fine with these predictions. And that's it.